Welcome back, my weebs and otakus. It's Otaku no Fuji with the second of our in-depth analysis videos of how well video game sumo wrestlers represent real-world sumo. This time we're looking at Ganryu from the Tekken franchise. Like always, please like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this or any of our other content. It really helps. Ganryu is an original Tekken character that has appeared in Tekken 1, 2, 5, 6, and 7, as well as the tag tournament games. Unfortunately, despite being one of the OGs, he's consistently near the bottom, if not the bottom, of franchise character popularity lists. Part of this is that sumo characters just aren't popular, but Ganryu in particular is especially unlikable. Essentially, his ultimate motivation in the Tekken franchise is just to get laid. First he chased after Michelle Chang and was totally shot down, and then he went after Michelle's adopted daughter, Julia Chang, despite there being something like a 35-year age difference, and was instantly rejected again. Ganryu is just kind of a gross creep. His story as a sumo wrestler is similarly bleak. He started off well and was the youngest Rikishi to reach the rank of Ozeki, but because of his antics on and off the dojo, namely his arrogant attitude and general disregard for Hinkaku, but more specifically illegal gambling, which is a huge no-no in Japan, he was quickly kicked out of the sport. I can't stress enough that retirement is a big deal in sumo. There is no speculation of a potential comeback for years after you retire. When you file your retirement papers in sumo, whether you are forced to quit or do it willingly, you're done forever. Ganryu was in fact actually already out of sumo when the first King of the Iron Fist tournament happened, and he entered the competition to try to prove that he was still one of the top fighters in the world. He failed, of course, because he kinda sucks. You have to consider what might have been, though, if he didn't speedrun the fall from grace out of the top echelons of sumo. I want to compare him to Asashoryu, but Ganryu actually did it first. As I mentioned, in the Tekken world, Ganryu was the youngest to ever reach Ozeki. In the real world, that record is held by the 65th Yokozuna Takanohana, who reached Ozeki at 20 years and 5 months old. We have to assume Ganryu reached Ozeki at roughly that same pace in the fictional Tekken world, because any faster would be almost impossible. I want to focus on this a bit because despite the fact the matches can be over in literally a second, everything else in sumo happens at a pretty agonizingly glacially slow pace. Working your way up the ranks takes years just to get to the top Makuuchi division, and then even longer to get where you could go on an Ozeki run. If you started sumo at the minimum age of 15, you'd start in the lowest Jonokuchi division, and then have to grind your way up through 600 plus dudes in the rest of the divisions. With only 6 tournaments a year to move up the rankings, it can, and does, take several years just to get to the second highest Juryo division and actually start earning a paycheck. It is also more likely than not to sort of get stuck there in Juryo for a while, as it is an extremely competitive division, with a mix of former top division guys trying to get back, skilled young up-and-comers, and good but not quite good enough guys desperately treading water who want to keep getting paid, so they aren't going to give up their spot very easily. After grinding in Juryo for a while, you'd eventually reach the top Makuuchi division, where you'll grind even longer until you get to the named Sanyaku ranks. Then, after all of that, you still have to put together 3 good tournaments in a row, so 6 more months basically, with at least 33 wins between them to even reach Ozeki, which is extremely difficult. Even the undisputed greatest of all time, Hakuho, took 3 years to get to Makuuchi, and then another 2 years to reach Ozeki at 21 years old. There is another way to enter sumo called Sukedashi that moves you up the ranks a lot faster, that allowed successful college or other accepted amateur sumo champions to start in the 3rd highest Makushita division at rank 10 or 15. That rule was changed in 2023, however, and now they have to start at Makushita 60 instead. The way it worked before, though, is you could theoretically win the Makushita division in your first tournament, spend a couple of tournaments in Juryo, and then reach Makuuchi in your 4th ever tournament. This only happened a couple of times ever, just to show you how hard it is, even when you're starting so high. The thing is, though, that you'd still be 19 or 20 years old or so. So grinding through Makuuchi to get to the Sanyaku ranks will likely add another year at least, and then several more basho to get to Ozeki. To reiterate, any younger than Takanohana's 20 years and 5 months is basically impossible. Not that it can't actually be done faster than that. Current Ozeki Onosato was one of the last Rikishi allowed to start at Makushita 10 in the old Tsukidashi system, and he skyrocketed to Ozeki after just his 9th tournament. He was already 24 years old though. To bring it back to the purpose of this video, it really gives you some perspective how great Tekken's Ganryu must have been on the dojo, before he, got kicked out of the sport for being a stupid moron. I have to say that I rather appreciate how clear and blunt Namco was with Ganryu's sumo career, instead of the vagaries and pussyfooting around like Capcom does with E-Honda. We know exactly what Ganryu accomplished, and I like that. Ganryu's height and weight are also probably more accurate than Honda's as well. He's listed at 6'3" and 276 pounds, which I'm inclined to believe. He's been out of sumo for a while, so slimming down to 276 is pretty reasonable for a retired Rikishi. He's still a huge dude, and he seems to be properly in scale with the rest of the Tekken cast. To me, he looks pretty realistic for his height and weight. Despite bombing out of sumo disappointingly early, you can tell Ganryu still has at least some love and respect for the sport by the way he fights in Tekken. Basically, all of his move list is sumo moves that are mostly accurately named after Kimarite, the 82 winning moves in sumo, or other general sumo techniques. The moves are greatly exaggerated to fit into an over-the-top fighting game, of course, but they are still quite a bit clearer and more realistically depicted here than what you see with Honda in Street Fighter. The fact that many of his moves and combos start with a tachi-ai, squatting down and putting both fists on the ground before moving forward, is the prime example of that. He goes from a tachi-ai to striking or grappling just like real sumo wrestlers do. Interestingly, some of his moves are actually also based on Hiji, or one of the 5 losing moves a sumo wrestler can do, such as falling down or stepping out on your own without your opponent forcing you. Ganryu sits down or falls on his back as part of combos, which is pretty wild. Tekken is essentially MMA and not sumo though, so he's wisely learned how to adapt. His stated goal for fighting in King of the Iron Fist tournaments is mostly to prove that he is still strong, as well as to try to get laid. So strictly adhering to sumo techniques shouldn't be expected. Taking all that into consideration, Ganryu actually represents sumo surprisingly well in his fighting style. Ultimately though, Ganryu is just kind of a big disappointing loser. He had all of the tools to be one of the greatest sumo grand champions of all time, but threw it all away and got tossed out of the sport even faster than it took for his record-setting Ozeki promotion. Then in his post-sumo career, he creeped on Michelle and Julia Chang, and got shot down of course, and never really made much of an impact as a competitor during the King of the Iron Fist tournaments. It's no wonder why he's consistently among the least popular characters in the Tekken franchise. Ganryu sucks. And that's it for Tekken's Ganryu. Thanks a lot for watching. Please like and subscribe and check out otakunofuji.com.